Hey everybody, this is Zachary Jeans. Let's keep walking through the Bible. So today is episode 518 and we are beginning a new book. We're starting the book of Proverbs. I was just chatting with my wife about this. Every single proverb is a conversation. Maybe not every single couplet or line, but basically every 2, 3, 4 sentences is a whole conversation. And we are in a Bible walkthrough, something akin to a read through, and therefore we can't stop on every proverb and chew on it, meditate on it, discuss it, bat it back and forth. Look at it in the context of when it was written, look at it in the context in which we see it now through the lens of Jesus. So that said, that's my preface. We aren't going to be able to stop on every proverb. However, we will do our best to stop along the way and hit really important ones. No doubt I will skip ones that you're like, hey, wait a minute, I want to know what you think about that. So my wife was joking with me, after I'm done with keep walking through the Bible, maybe I'll do a lingering in the Bible, hanging out, doing more in depth. So I don't know, we'll see. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the opportunity to walk through the Bible with you. If you would like to, Lord willing, we're going to look at the first 3 chapters today, and we'll take this in 2 to 3 chapter chunks over the next 10 episodes or so. And I would like to, again, take more time, but I just don't think that would be appropriate for our walkthrough and the pacing that we've kept to this date. Again, the goal is, Lord willing, for us to complete our 3-year walkthrough of the Bible here on December 31st, New Year's Eve. And Lord willing, we will do that. All right. Why don't we stop? Why don't we pray? You hit pause. Go ahead and listen or read at esv.org. First 3 chapters, and then we'll get going. Lord, I love you. God, thanks for your word. God, thank you for opening doors for your word. God, you're so good. God, help me be faithful to you and to your word and to those that you have given to me in my life. First and foremost, my wife, my family, those that I serve, those that are here. God, all of us pray that. We want to be faithful to the people that you've given us and faithful to you. We love you. God, help us grow. Help me grow in wisdom as I'm spending time with you and your word in Proverbs. And God, we just lay all this at your feet, trusting that your spirit will both keep us and protect us from the enemy. It's in your name we pray, Jesus. Amen. All right. Well, why don't we open up? Hopefully you took a minute or 2 to go ahead and listen to Proverbs or read. And we are going to open up. We're going to take the first section here, first 7 verses. We'll talk about it, and then we'll move on to the next section, talk about it, and so on and so forth. The beginning of knowledge, ESV titles this, and it's fair. It is the beginning of knowledge. The Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealing, in righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance. To understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. The search for wisdom and instruction doesn't matter whether you're starting out at the beginning or whether you've been crunching some of these things for a bit. There's always room to grow. You never arrive. Now, you might get a little farther down the road, and some of the initial quandaries, the things that, challenge you, you start to understand. And you understand that by observing the world, thinking logically, putting truth above yourself, and in so doing, finding out, how do these ideas relate to one another? You know, it's oftentimes our pride. In fact, I would say it's always our pride which keeps us from learning. What do I mean by that? Well, let's look at verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. They're pitted against one another as opposites, right? Fear of the Lord, the person who fears the Lord, is somebody who stands at the beginning of knowledge, the very beginning of this journey. That's the starting point. To reverence and fear the Lord. That is to place oneself in submission to God. To recognize God as almighty and me as not almighty. But a fool is somebody who stands opposite of that. There's somebody who doesn't fear the Lord, right? There's somebody, in fact, who stands above the Lord in their heart. There, as we've read in other places, the fool says that there is no God. This is the person who despises this beginning of knowledge, this wisdom, this instruction. They can't even begin to learn. If you don't understand that God is God and I am not. Why? Because self wants what self wants. And if God is there to tell self what self wants and should want and shouldn't, right? God is God, not me. So ultimately, it gets real simple. The beginning of knowledge starts with fearing God, having a deep and abiding reverence for the Almighty. And the beginning of foolishness is to not fear the Lord, right? To not have a position where you recognize God's authority and his power and who he is, but rather putting yourself on that place that you're king of your life or queen of your life. Okay. All right. Verse 8. This talks about how we get lured into sin. Hear, my son, your father's instruction, and forsake not your mother's teaching, for they are a graceful garland for your head and pendants for your neck. My son, if sinners entice you, don't consent. If they say, come with us, let's lie in wait for blood. Let's ambush the innocent without reason. Like Sheol, let us swallow them alive, and a whole like those who go down to the pit. We shall find all precious goods. We shall fill our houses with plunder. Throw in your lot among us. We'll have one purse. My son, do not walk in the way with them. Hold back your foot from their paths, for their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed blood. For in vain is a net spread in the sight of any bird, but these men lie in wait for their own blood. They set an ambush for their own lives. Such are the ways of everyone who is greedy for unjust gain. It takes away the life of its possessor. This is the life of living that crime life. You know, it's like, it starts out with being a part of a group of bullies in school and harassing people, using intimidation to get what you want when you're young, stealing the answers from this and that to get somebody to give you something just because you're bigger or stronger than them. And then it moves into older life where Solomon is instructing. He's like, my son, hey, you're growing up here. There's going to be guys that are going to kind of come alongside and say, hey, let's go gang up and steal from people. Let's go basically ruin their lives so that we can have stuff. Well, what does that eventually lead to? Well, it's that pirate life eventually has its end, and it's not a good one, because eventually people turn on each other in that world. But this whole life, it's like a trap. The bait is this desire. Such are the ways of everyone who is greedy for unjust gain. Not just gain, but unjust gain, right? It takes away the life of its possessor. This unjust gain, I want it. I want to have it now. I don't want to do it the right way. That takes too long. It's too much hard work, whatever. I have to humble myself. I can't just take it. It takes too long. And then eventually it takes you. So pretty simple. If you recognize that there are people asking you to get over on a group of other people because they're idiots, and this is the game, and so we're just going to play it better than them, and we're going to just take it from them, that itself tells you that you're in a situation where it may take you. Not right away, but eventually. Because you're playing a game where people are stealing, cheating and stealing with each other, and they're going to eventually cheat and steal you. Life will. Or you'll face justice. But at some point, you're going to pay the price. So if you're greedy for unjust gain, if you want to take and steal, eventually it's going to steal from you. The call of wisdom. Wisdom cries aloud in the street. In the markets, she raises her voice. At the head of the noisy streets, she cries out. At the entrance of the city gates, she speaks. How long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? How long will scoffers delight in their scoffing and fools hate knowledge? If you turn at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. I will make my words known to you. Because I have called and you refuse to listen, have stretched out my hand, but no one has heeded. Because you ignored all my counsel and would have none of my reproof, I will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when terror strikes you. When terror strikes you like a storm and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, like a tornado. When distress and anguish come upon you, then they will call upon me, but I won't answer. They will seek me diligently, but they won't find me. Because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. They would have none of my counsel and despised all my reproof. Therefore, they shall eat the fruit of their way and have their fill of their own devices. For the simple are killed by their turning away, and the complacency of fools destroys them. But whoever listens to me will dwell secure and will be at ease without dread of disaster. When we will not listen or seek this wisdom which Solomon is speaking of, which begins with the fear of the Lord and is now personified wisdom as a female who has this wisdom. She is wisdom. And she speaks and she calls and she cares. But if her child is an idiot and refuses to listen and is complacent, simply will not move in any direction towards any understanding. It's just totally, I'm not going to worry about thinking about that stuff. It's too tough. What point is it? It doesn't do anything for me now, right? It's not the quick and easy, like stealing something from somebody. If you refuse to use and exercise your brain, when the calamity comes, when the storm comes of life, when the challenges come, when the difficult stuff happens, at that moment, the fool will cry out like, well, okay, I need to figure this out. Where's my wisdom? Where's the answer? And it's not there. It's the thing that you have to do before the problem arises. It's the thinking and the heart searching and the wrestling with ideas that gives you the ability when the trouble comes to deal with the trouble. But when the trouble comes and you haven't done that, there's no time. There's no time to deal with it. and you're crushed by it. You're smashed by the tornado, by the storm. You don't know how to seek shelter. You don't know how to move out of the way. You don't know how to fortify your life. So wisdom's crying out in the street, and people they won't listen to her. So we want to be ones who listen to her, because it's pretty straightforward and simple. The whole section basically sums up to this. If you're an idiot, you're somebody who doesn't fear God and won't lift up the energy, put up the energy to think through this stuff with wisdom, to understand stuff so that when trouble comes, you know how to deal with life. But if you are willing to do that, when the trouble comes, you will know how to deal with it. So I want to invite you, I'm inviting myself, fresh and anew, to put myself in the position of somebody who wants to seek wisdom so that when trouble comes, I can fairly deal with it. I don't want to be an idiot. I don't want to be a simple-minded person who's unwilling to think about these things. All right, chapter 2. Here's the value of wisdom. Here's the value. My son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding. Yes, if you call out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom from his mouth, come understanding and knowledge. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He's a shield to those who walk in integrity. He guards the path of justice, and he watches over the way of his saints. Then you will understand righteousness and justice and equity, every good path. For wisdom will come into your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Discretion will watch over you. Understanding will guard you, delivering you from the way of evil, from men of perverted speech, who forsake the paths of uprightness, to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice in doing evil and delight in perverseness of evil, men whose paths are crooked and whose ways are devious. This is the tough part. I'm not against entertainment. Not against hobbies, interests, doing stuff that, is just regular and fun and parts of life. I think God created a creative world. I don't think that this world is meant to be just a carefully stewarded measuring out of every single action and thought that supports the gospel, say, or does for work that provides money that supports good things and your family. Like there's a view about stewarding this life that doesn't allow for anything creative, anything beautiful, any sort of excess, any sort of love, any interests, any personal individuality, because it's all focused on a singular goal. The problem with that is it doesn't really express who God is. When you look at all of the world that is, there is such a diversity of creation, of animals and plants and all the cliches, right? Everything that's made is so diverse and so beautiful and different, from very large things to very tiny things, right? All the differences. And so we, being made in God's image, we have a whole host and wide variety of interests and creative passions. It goes from everything from something that might seem dumb to one group of people, like, say, football, right? Or all the way to something that's so, like reading poetry from somebody who wrote it 300 years ago. Everybody has an interest, and it's because I think we're all made in God's image and we all have these creative passions. That said, our interests in our creative passions can lead us away from looking at things which God has put forth that aren't easy to think about. That is seeking truth and knowledge. That's wrestling with tough ideas in our heart and our mind. It's spending time feeling dumb when we're looking at a piece of text in the Bible and going, I don't get it. God, I don't understand this. How does that work? And then it hurts. It hurts your brain. It hurts your soul because you're like, I don't understand. And then you want to walk away from it and you're like, well, I guess I'm not meant to understand it. And you spend all 30 seconds thinking about it. And you pop open a game or you pop open something on the TV or start doom scrolling, and you never seek God like he is. Seek that wisdom, that understanding, that truth, and find God in his ways like it's talking about here. It's not easy. It goes back to that metaphor I gave before of the pastor taught about how leaves are beautiful and you can rake them up relatively easy, or you can blow them into a pile with a blower. But those leaves, their beauty, their faded beauty, they don't last, and they're all going to go in a pile or off to a, yard waste disposal. But the real valuable things are deep and they're underground, like gold and silver and gems, which are often the subject here, that are the example of wisdom and understanding and truth. And it's hard to dig for that stuff. If you're to go out and start digging holes until you find gold, right? First, you have to even find a place to even start digging, and then get permission to dig, and then get the tools to dig, and then do the digging. And then it's like, I didn't find anything. And then it's generally in the area, and you start digging and digging and digging and digging. And it's so hard, and you're beat up, and your hands hurt. And then finally you strike, and you see a glint of that beautiful yellow gold that you've been seeking. That's like the wisdom. That's like us seeking wisdom and understanding and truth and knowledge. It's tough, but man, does it yield help. It helps us when troubles and difficulties come. It helps us when we have friends and family that are going through it, and we then have the ability to help them walk through it. But man, it's not easy. All right, verse 16. You will be delivered from the forbidden woman, from the adulteress with her smooth words, who forsakes the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. For her house sinks down to death, and her paths to the departed. None who go to her come back, nor do they regain the paths of life. And sadly, and I raise my hand, I'm trying to do this with all humility, like temptations can come to any of us. But I'll tell you what, I've seen some of the most godly men and women give it all up for a good time with someone else. And no matter what, and they may be forgiven and they can repent, their spouse forgives them, things go on, or maybe they get divorced, but they're still like able to maintain a relationship with God and the church. They've given up a pastorate, or they've given up, that trust in their marriage forever. They're forgiven, but that trust is shot. It's shot. There's always a question. Always a question. And the words are so smooth, and the temptation is so easy, and we forget the covenant, that promise we made with God. Oftentimes the adulteress here is the one who gets blamed. And sure, blame goes around. But that's a human being too. That's somebody who gave up on their covenant with God. And the person that goes with her here, this guy, he's given up on the covenant that he made with his God as well. And that's where it starts and stops. You have covenants with your spouse. You have covenants with your kids. You have these relational promises, agreements with work and your ministry, your small group. I'll tell you what, that covenant you have with your God, Jesus, if it's not a moment by moment relationship, Paul says, taking every thought captive to Christ, taking every thought like a prisoner and bringing it to Jesus. That is how we stand against this temptation. We have a lifetime of understanding and wisdom sought out, where we seek God and we understand who he is and we know him, but not just to know intellectually our God, but in a moment by moment relationship of seeking him, where it means something, so that when this temptation comes, you're able to go, that's really tempting, but not mine. You're mine, Lord. I'm yours. Verse 20, so you will walk in the way of good and keep to the paths of righteous. For the upright will inhabit the land, and those with integrity will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the land, and the treacherous will be rooted out of it. And Solomon, by the way, in the first chapter there, he is by no means denying that taking the wrong way doesn't lead to results. I mean, he admits that. These guys go off like pirates and they take what they want. They steal, they cheat, they lie, they grab, they take whatever they want. They get it. They have a great time. Eventually, though, and this is his point, it all comes back on your head. It all gets found out in the end. At some point, it comes back, and it comes back hard. And for those that persevere, they eventually win out. They stand the test, generally speaking, of time. The integrity will remain in it. Those with integrity remain in it. But those that are wicked, they'll be cut off at some point. You're like, man, it takes an awful long time. Well, what do you have? You have the integrity of your relationship with the Lord. It's better to have a little with the righteous than an abundance with the wicked. Chapter 3. My son, don't forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments. For length of days and years of life and peace, they will add to you. Let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart, so you will find favor and good success in the sight of God and man. What does that mean? Literally write it and bind it on your heart and stuff? Well, I see some people, they got little necklaces and they got bracelets that they'll write, their favorite verse, or they might get something tattooed on their arm, their favorite verse. Recently, a really wonderful guy passed away, and his name was Boone. He was a real advocate for veterans and really loved by a lot of people. And one of his verses was Isaiah 6:8. Who will I send? It's like, send me. Isaiah said, who shall go for us? Is what the Lord said. And Isaiah says, send me. And that was his verse. He's like, send me. So I think he had it tattooed. And the point is like, not necessarily literally having stuff, bound around your neck or your arm or your head or whatever. But the idea is that you abide in truth and understanding and the word of God, his sayings, wisdom. It's literally stuff that you just kind of mulling over. It's about who you are. And then when that is the way you walk and think and talk, you will find favor and good success in the sight of God and in man and with man. Verse 5, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. Almost every Bible, this is a new Bible, so I haven't underlined it yet. I would imagine almost everybody's Bible who's gone through Proverbs has underlined that verse. That is the truth. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him. He will make your path straight. Moment by moment, in all your ways, day by day, moment by moment, acknowledge God. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, not part of it, maybe today, not tomorrow, all of it every day. Don't lean on your own understanding. What does that mean? Your selfish understanding. Working things out with your own illogical thoughts and feelings, but rather God's truth. Clear observation, understanding. Acknowledge him in all your ways. He'll make your path straight. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. It'll be healing to your flesh, refreshment to your bones. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty. Your vats will be bursting with wine. My son, don't despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof. For the Lord reproves him whom he loves, as a father the son in whom he delights. You may be going through something, and over time you've realized, oh yeah, God's holding me accountable. I said I wouldn't do this, prayed about it, talked to God about it. God convicted me not to do that. Opportunity came, I did it. And now you're facing the consequences of it, just as a matter of the natural consequences of whatever action you took. But you've noticed through the process that the Lord, as you're reading the word, as you're talking with other believers, as you're listening to a sermon here and there, oh, yeah, the Lord's disciplining me through this. It's obvious. It's more than just the natural consequences. You can see God's hand. And if you have a relationship with God, you know what that looks like. But just remember, that's meant for your good. That is meant for your good. And don't grow weary because it's taking longer than you would like. You aren't in charge of your discipline. Your dad is, God Almighty. Taking longer than you'd like. Hey, I've got it. I remember I've gone through a few of these big ones. And there was a time I wasn't supposed to go take an opportunity that was put before me. God made it abundantly clear. Gave me even a supernatural word. Hey, Zach, this is going to happen. Don't do this. The situation came. The person, not knowing any of this, offered me this opportunity God told me not to take. Everybody around me, good godly counsel, they're all like, oh no, you really should. That really wasn't God. I'm like, I think it was. No, that doesn't make sense, Zach. Why would God ever say that? This seems good. Here are all the reasons. This is the Bible. It says this and that. And doesn't that make sense? Yeah, it kind of makes sense. You're right. I mean, maybe that was just me being afraid of something or concerned. Maybe that was just a wild idea I had and it actually happened. Well, I went ahead and did the thing. And let me tell you, without getting into details, it was so crystal clear, abundantly clear that it was the wrong decision. That it was in fact the Lord who had spoke to me not to do that thing. It was so clear. It was horrifically hard for the next 6 months. Just bad news, man. Bad news. And eventually God got me through it and I got out of that situation and I had to start again back where I was before I started that situation. It put me back about a year in terms of my natural progression down the road I was on. Boy, I learned. And it was not pleasant when I was going through it. And it was abundantly clear to me. I keep using the word abundant because it was abundantly clear. Full of the fruit that I earned from that decision. And I wanted it to be over with. And I longed for that trial to be over with. But I had to navigate and get out of it in the appropriate way. Blessed is the one who finds wisdom. Blessed is the one who finds wisdom and the one who gets understanding. Verse 13. For the gain from her is better than the gain from silver, and her profit better than gold. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand, and in her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasure, or rather pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who lay hold of her. To those who hold her fast are called blessed. Again, the church struggles right now with back and forth between health and wealth, prosperity gospel, and the harsh, sort of austere life that Jesus and Paul present. The consequences of following Christ in a worldly world that values money and wealth and fame and pleasure and all this stuff. And Jesus is sitting there telling you that that's not the point of the world. The truth and the love of God is the point of the world. And oftentimes those things are at odds. And so as a result, you have people weighing in and kind of really leaning into a side of the gospel that rejects any sort of forms of pleasure and earning money and all this stuff. And so you got this back and forth argument going on. It's been going on for a while. It's really rising to the surface right now. In general, Paul was an apostle, and he lived hand to mouth, and he lived making tents and selling them to people that could afford to buy the tents. And he was paying for the people who couldn't afford to pay for themselves. And he was collecting money from people, both rich and poor, to provide for a ministry for people who didn't know about God. There's an economy in the world. And when we honor God and we do things right, in general, we'll be provided for. And in general, we'll make decisions that don't shipwreck our life on the rocks of the temptations of this world, of excessive drink, excessive drug use, or, and I mean bad drug use, but like the kind of drug use, I'm not talking about cups of coffee. Caffeine's a drug. Yeah, it's a drug. It's like everything has some level of stimulant or whatever, or, food and everything does. So here's coffee, right? But I'm talking about things like heroin or fentanyl or, crystal meth. When people give themselves, make poor decisions, they don't turn to wisdom, and they give themselves to poor decisions, guess what happens? Life shortens up real quick. The timeline, it retracts. If you have wisdom, if you can turn away from those temptations, from those lusts, guess what happens? The timeline extends. It's pretty straightforward and simple. If you generally deal well with people and make wise decisions in business and not selfish decisions, guess what happens? You don't crash your company or your job into the side of the wall. What do I mean? I mean, well, if you're feeling selfish and not wise and not fearing God, what are you doing? Well, I don't feel like going into work today. I'm calling out. Well, because of the way the world is, at some point, all of a sudden when the job has to make cuts, guess who's the one who gets cut? The guy who's always calling out. Why were you calling out? Because you're feeling awful selfish, not honoring God or wanting to represent him well at your company. Guess what you don't have now? An income. Isn't that crazy? Same thing if you're running the business. If you keep stealing and, or maybe not even technically stealing, but working an angle on some contract that you have with a vendor and always shortchanging people in those contracts as much as possible, eventually you'll have a competitor who will pay a little bit better, and all of a sudden those vendors won't offer you their products to sell or to use, or even maybe just to use enough of them that it makes sense for you. In other words, your business gets what it gave out eventually. And all of a sudden you're the one who's struggling. Maybe you're the one filing for bankruptcy. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come again. No. My bad. The Lord, by wisdom, verse 19, founded the earth. By understanding, he established the heavens. By his knowledge, the deeps broke up, and the clouds dropped down the dew. You know, just as a side note, this is a much bigger discussion I'm going to do here. This is a huge thing where we're talking about the firmament, that layer of water that was over the earth. There's ancient stories from other cultures that would tell the stories of that firmament breaking up and the appearance of the moon for the first time. The stories in the Bible talk about it when it cracked open and eventually the water came down that layer, and then the earth, the deeps opened up and land was moved out of its place and all kinds of stuff, the big flood. But here's Solomon just kind of casually mentioning it. The Lord, by God's wisdom, right? Lord, by his wisdom, founded the earth. By understanding established the heavens. By his knowledge, the deeps broke open. The clouds dropped down the dew. A lot of people kind of look at that and they're like, gosh, that sounds like him just kind of alluding to God's wisdom and how he set up the earth and then eventually broke open that firmament and dropped down rain, because it didn't rain until the days of Noah. Anyway, we'll keep moving on. You can go listen to 2 or 3 hour podcasts on that whole subject. My son, do not lose sight of these. Keep sound wisdom and discretion, and they will be life for your soul, an adornment for your neck. Then you will walk on your way securely, and your foot will not stumble. If you lie down, you won't be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. Do not be afraid of sudden terror, or of the ruin of wicked men when it comes. For the Lord will be your confidence, and will keep your foot from being caught. He's not promising that you won't be attacked, that you won't face a bad business dealing, that you won't be attacked literally by wicked people. It's just, you'll know how to deal with it when it comes. You know, in my job, I inevitably get a bad car. I get a group of riders that are super aggressive, both possibly physically, although I've been able to stop all those situations by God's grace and wisdom, or just people who are trying to connive and bait me into conversations and to try to get me to say something. And it's like you're playing mental chess. And I honestly, I wouldn't be able to do it unless I hadn't spent years with the Lord and really thinking about some of this stuff, so that in those situations I'm prepared. And I can tell you there's so much value, because what could have been a very ugly situation is then turned around, and perhaps I was able to get out of the situation, but then get some eyeballs on it from the appropriate people that can maybe help that person who is causing so much trouble. Or I can make sure that some other driver doesn't face these people again, because their account will be dealt with. And you're like, people do that? Yeah, people are like that. I've had some really, really unpleasant people in my car. And if I would have reacted emotionally or irrationally, it could have elevated the situation. Sometimes I have to raise my voice. I have to use a curse word or two just to elevate, to make them realize, oh, because I understand that they won't listen any other way. You talk to them calmly, peaceably, They don't understand. And then you're like, they're threatening you and they feel like they have some great advantage. And then you're like, oh, I kind of got to flip the table on them while I have authority and the control and the power. And so you pull over and you're like, hit 911. And while it's dialing, you're like, get out of my car. And they're like, what? Well, they just went from being in control and threatening you to all of a sudden it is completely turned on them. And now the 911 operator answers, 911, what's your emergency? And I say, Zachary, Lyft driver, passengers threatening me, will not leave the car. Okay, what's your location? And at that point, the people are like, oh crap, I got called out, right? Now, had I not had a place of wisdom and a security with the Lord, I might be really agitated. I might do something stupid. I've heard stories of drivers doing stupid things, like elevating the you might think, well, that's elevating it. No. I'm talking about where some guy is so freaked out that he reaches for a weapon, or some woman freaks out and she gets out of her car and abandons it. You know, some situation where then it puts her at risk and now she's on the street, can't get away. So, yeah, there are times when we will be confronted, and by God's grace, with wisdom and His Spirit and His presence, we can navigate through them. All right, let's close. 28. No. Let me back up. 27. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to do it. That is such a good word. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come again tomorrow. I will give it when you have it with you. If you can do the thing at the time that you can do it, and I'm guilty of this at times, just do it. Trust God. Don't plan evil against your neighbor who dwells trustingly beside you. Do not contend with a man for no reason when he's done you no harm. Do not envy a man of violence, and do not choose any of his ways. For the devious person is an abomination to the Lord, but the upright are in his confidence. The Lord's curse is on the house of the wicked, but he blesses the dwelling of the righteous. Toward the scorners he is scornful, but to the humble he gives favor. The wise will inherit honor, but fools get disgrace. And perhaps that's where I'll close, just with that concept that I mentioned. You know, when it's in your power to do good, do it. And at the time, you may not make sense of it. I'm not telling you to give money to every person who asks for it, although you can and trust God with it. But what I'm saying is, like, if somebody wants to borrow the, vacuum cleaner, and you're like, I don't know, I'm doing some things around the house, and yeah, I guess I technically have time to go give you the vacuum cleaner, but I don't know. Why don't we do this some other day? No, stop what you're doing. You got time. Let the guy or let the person borrow the vacuum cleaner. Whatever it is. Maybe it requires you to drive down the street. Do you have time to make the 15-minute drive or not? Yeah, you do. Okay. Do you want to? No. But should you? Yeah. Whatever it is, right? You know when those situations come up. If it's in your power to do the good, do it. Give it to God. Give it to them. Don't begrudge the person to help them, right? All right. Well, it's our first day walking through Proverbs. We'll be in Proverbs chapter 4 through 6 tomorrow. And until then, you know what I'm going to tell you. Until you keep walking, go back through those Proverbs. Go back through them. Meditate on them. Meditate on them. Chew on them. Wrestle with them. And until then, God bless you. Bye-bye.